Hello and welcome to Poetry Corner. I'd like to introduce Beth Patworth, who's coming here today to share some poetry with us. I think it's going to be a fun session, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's going to be kind of comic, fun and fantastic.
Good, lovely. And of course, as you will remember, Beth was here earlier, but she's just finished her exams. I bet you're relieved, aren't you?
I'm really relieved. I'm ready to kind of go for talking about some poetry.
Smashing. So what poetry are you going to share with us today?
Today I'm going to be talking about The Jabberwocky by Lewis Carroll, which I'm really excited about because I used to read a lot of Lewis Carroll when I was little. Alice in Wonderland is a favourite for me. When Alice falls down the rabbit hole and she's in this kind of wondrous land and it's all a bit mad and there's animals and everything and it's very kind of it's very out there for Alice and it's not something she's used to, and she stumbles across this through the looking glass and she reads this poem called The Jabberwocky.
Oh, right. And
I'm just going to read it now.
Lovely, yes, please. So, The Jabberwocky by Beth.
By Beth. Or Beth's interpretation.
Yeah.
'Twas brillig and the slithy toves did gyre and gimble in the wabe. All mimsy were the borogoves, and the mome raths outgrabe. Beware the Jabberwock, my son, the jaws that bite, the claws that catch. Beware the jubjib bird and shun, the frumious bandersnatch. He took his vorpal sword in hand, long time the man ux's foam he sought. So rested he by the tum-tum tree, and stood a while in thought. And as in uffish thought he stood, the Jabberwock with eyes aflame, come whiffing through the tulgey wood, and burbled as it came. 1, 2, 1, 2, and through, the vorpal blade went snicker-snack. He left it dead, and with its head he went galumphing back. And how thus slain the Jabberwock? Come to my arms, my beamish boy. O frabjous day, callooh, calais, he chortled in his joy. 'Twas brillig and the slothy toves did gyre and gimble in the wabe. All mimsy were the borogoves, and the mome raths outgrabe.
Goodness.
So.
I didn't understand a word of that.
It is utter gibberish, but in the most comic and lightening way. I think words like gimble and borogoves, his use of words is really interesting. If you think about gimble and borogoves, it's so ludicrous and mad. What comes to mind, do you think, when you think of gimble and gyre and borogoves?
I think they're beautifully announced words. They're really good to say, aren't they? Gimble.
And gyre.
Gyre. They've got a thing about them, haven't they? They're good words.
Yeah.
I don't know what they mean. What do you think they mean?
I think borogoves, I think of like a mole or something like burrowing under the ground and hiding itself away, maybe protecting itself from all the wild species that it's kind of surrounded by. I think gyre and gimble are quite similar, and that's them probably running away or gimbling and gyring. It's very interesting. They're kind of neologisms, they're kind of made up words, and he's kind of sparked the reader's interest by using kind of 'twas brillig. So I think that's interesting. The Jabberwock. Now, if I think of the Jabberwock, I think of kind of a very large creature. Maybe loads of claws, big, and probably eats nearly everything. It's a huge kind of species. It's giant. It's probably the biggest out of all of the Wonderland species.
Wow. Bit science fiction, really.
Yeah.
I can see something out of Star Wars.
Yeah, and the music in the background.
But but beautiful enunciation, lovely words to actually say. Might not mean anything, but they sound. You said it so well. I like the pronunciation of them. So interesting.
I think
words.
When Lewis Carroll explored this in 1872, he, for the first time, it was something that was so kind of ludicrous and made up words, and for the audience, it was so interesting that they were so interested by it. and it was something that they'd probably never seen before in this time. So the end of the 19th century, it was something like Vorpal blade. That's probably like a sword. Maybe he's trying to like ward off some other animals.
But it's Wonderland, so it's something entirely different with its own language. Very clever.
This is a critic by Martin Gardner writes, few would dispute the fact that Jabberwocky is the greatest of all nonsense poems in English. It was so well known to English schoolboys in the late 19th century that 5 of its nonsense words appear casually in the conversation of students in Rudyard Kipling's Storky and Co.
Gosh.
Alice herself in the paragraph following the poem puts her finger on the secret of the poem's charm. It seems to fill my head with ideas, only I don't know exactly what they are. Although the strange words have no precise meaning, they chime with subtle overtones. So this is very famous, and I think as a late 19th century poem, it grabbed most of the audience attention. And I also think that, for instance, the first stanza is completely indecipherable. We're brought into this world where all these words are made up and no one's really sure what it means. And the whimsical nature of the poem stands out. They're kind of homemade words. And I think the poem tells the story of a fairy tale filled with beasts and bravery, and it's chivalrous. And the scariest beast of all in the world of the poem is the Jabberwock, although the land is filled with others like the Bandersnatch and the Jub bird. So he paints quite a beautiful image of this kind of chivalrous world and fighting off all of these animals. And in an intraweaving manner, perhaps he would say, the word use in the Jabberwocky fits in with the world that Alice has wandered into. It's very mystical, magical. It's something that you wouldn't normally
It's
come
genius,
across.
actually. It's genius.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
I think it is kind of like a spark of genius.
Right.
And
Well, do you know what? I think we've run out of time. I could go on forever. You've got so much more to tell me, haven't you? But this is Poetry Corner, and I'm sorry that we're going to have to go now. Perhaps we'll have to talk about this again another time. I know that Beth has got many, many more poems to share with us. And I'm sorry we have to go for the moment, but that was really interesting. And actually, it's nice to hear it again.
Yeah, I hope you've all enjoyed listening to the poem. And if you're interested, then pick up Lewis Carroll's book yourself and jump into Alice's world.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for joining us. Goodbye.